Hello everyone, Dr. Arnett here. In this brief video lecture, we're going to talk about the question, if usability testing is so great, why are products so hard to use? You know what? I'm glad you asked that. That is such an excellent question. The answer we're going to spend a few minutes talking about. I'm going to bring up 5 reasons and various sub-reasons in those reasons why products are hard to use. The first we're going to talk about is development. Development often focuses on the system being used or the task at hand. So when we talk system, it is generally the thing people are using to accomplish some sort of goal. That thing that they're doing is the task. So sometimes developers will focus on those things more than what they should be focusing on. Now, notice this handy-dandy little diagram here. You'll notice that this fits very well with the ISO definition of usability. So we have specified users doing something specified in a specified context of use. So we look at this diagram and say, okay, cool, I've got these 3 factors I need to keep in mind when I'm developing a product to make it usable. Well, developers sometimes will focus more on the activity, or again, that thing that is being done, instead of the humans and the context. Why is that? The answer? Well, kind of human nature is the answer. People can adapt to machines. It's hard to make machines adapt to people. Now, you can do that. You can customize machines, etc. But that takes a lot of work, a lot of brain power. It takes a lot of money and time. People are also ambiguous things. We do strange things for strange reasons, whereas devices, once you build them, they should do the same thing every single time you do the same thing to it. That's what makes them machines and makes them work and makes us like them. And also, the developers themselves, they're engineers, they're programmers. They are not necessarily the most people-centered people in the world. Now, it's not saying that they're soulless nerds. You know, I like a lot of nerds. I'm a bit of a nerd myself. But at the same time, we try to, in the technical communication field, in the interactive design field, in these humanistic sort of approaches, we are really concerned about what are people doing? How are people interacting with this? Whereas the engineers and programmers are, well, they're more interested in their machines and making them function correctly. So basically, what it comes down to is focusing on the system is both faster and easier. And, to be frank, it's a lot less emotionally taxing. Target audiences, they change. Oftentimes, a product's original audience is going to be someone who is doing it for a hobby. They're people who go in the garage and tinker away. They are subject matter experts, or SMEs. So, for example, we've got Wanda here. Wanda is soldering away, having a good time on her circuit board. That's really cool. She's really into it. She's an enthusiast. She's going to make a new device, and it can be kind of finicky. Then she's going to pass it along to somebody else who is willing to get into the guts of the thing, poke around with it, and make it work, tweak it to exactly how they want it to be. So yeah, this thing where you pass off one device to another expert, this is called the next bench development model. That's because someone works at their workbench, passes it to the next nerd, at the next workbench, who then tweaks it and passes it to the next nerd at the next workbench. We'll illustrate that here. So for example, we've got Wanda. She is soldering away, having a good time. She passes her thing over, and Keisha has it. Keisha is now soldering away, looking intent. They're both having a good time. Does this work for them? Is this a good development model? Absolutely. But then, what if Wanda takes that same thing, passes it along to Bob? Is Bob interested in twiddling with it? The answer is no. Bob just wants to do something with it. So this is not going to work for him. Generally speaking, remember, your user wants a tool. They want to do something with it. They are not interested in picking up a new hobby. Designing usable products is, well, it can be a difficult process in and of itself. So we have a device here. Is this a very usable device, do you think? My guess is not really. It was fairly high-tech at one time, but, golly, how does this thing go? What am I supposed to do with it? It looks kind of scary, etc. So when it comes down to it, designers often don't know what usable really means. They don't know what is good user experience. What is involved with that? What does it mean? How does it work? How can I make things usable? They don't know. They would think sometimes, oh, well, it's just common sense. If I make it like this, everybody will know to do that. No, they won't do that. They will have not the slightest idea. So common sense fails. Never, ever rely on common sense. And know that people need training in how to conduct usability studies and create good UX. Development teams also don't always integrate their work very well. Sometimes their work is quote-unquote siloed. What we mean by that? Well, if you're not familiar with it, a silo is a building, usually on a farm, that has, it's just a big container building for things. Now, there are different types of silos, but for this particular example, I'm just going to run with this picture here. We've got corn in one, we have wheat in another, rye in the third, and soybeans in the fourth. We want to keep these things separate because they are separate things, right? Not a big problem there. But when we start talking about developing products, well, we've got to think about different parts of products. For example, there's the user interface on the front. We've got a help system somewhere there because people will not always be able to understand the user interface, or they need to accomplish something relatively sophisticated that's not intuitive, so they have to go for help. There's got to be documentation as well. What if the thing breaks? Where do I need to go for help? What sort of features does this thing hold, etc., etc. So the documentation has to be created. And then, of course, there's always the back end of this. Well, how about when you put it all together, is it going to work correctly? Will the user interface work with the help system? So if the user needs help, can they get to it very easily through the interface? Or if they need to look up something about it, can they find it in the documentation without having to jump out and go into an entirely separate system? This is interesting, isn't it? Oh, and then sometimes, if they test it at all, the development teams will test these different parts separately. So they'll test the user interface, and they'll test the back end, but they won't necessarily put the two together in live until they ship it, and then they discover problems. So it's a very, very good idea to integrate work, but it doesn't always happen. Then, the last point we're going to talk about is design and function. They don't always match up. The deal is that designing an interface and making that interface work, those things are different skills. You all are learning skills that involve both, but unless you're going to be a full-on, full-stack developer, well, gee, you have to integrate it, and if you don't, the result is often bad UX. So, for example, everybody absolutely loves to hate parking lot pay machines. Take a look at this thing. Is it intuitive? No, not at all. Does it have everything you need to do? Well, probably yes, but how to use it? Is that interface, it's functional, I am sure, because people sell this thing. You see it around, but it's not easy to use. Making it work, oh, well, that's a different skill as well. And then there's the famous example of this. This is an alert that went out to the residents of Hawaii. It's a civil defense alert. And January the 13th, I believe it was 2021, was it? I don't remember the year. But basically, this message went out and said, pray to the deity of your choice. The North Koreans have launched missiles. We're all about to die. Didn't happen. Why did this message go out? It's because of this interface. This is the screen that the person was clicking on. They were supposed to click on the, if you look, it says nuclear alerts, that PACOM CDW state only. Well, that's the real alert button, but down below, the drill PACOM CDW state only. They clicked the wrong one because of bad UX, bad interface. So the design here and the function didn't really match up. All right then, so now we've talked about all these ideas, How can we use them? How can we make products easy to use? The answer? Fairly simple. One of them, first, follow the principles of user-centered design. Y'all have been learning about these in your classwork so far, so we're going to continue on doing that. You need to resist technological determinism. Make sure that you, the people, are driving technology and not letting technology drive us. Not letting people be driven by the things that you create. Don't funnel them. Let them do the things that they want to do. And of course, usability test like crazy. The rest of the semester we're going to spend talking about usability testing and how to do it. So we'll teach you how to prepare studies, run the studies, and write up the usability test results. That's the end of this particular presentation. Thank you very much.